he got all the big calls right. We've got to forgive him for breaking the law because he got all the big calls right, including the throwing of the protective ring around the care homes that Matt Hancock has boasted about. Right from the start, we have tried to throw a protective ring around our care homes. They did the precise and polar opposite. It's not just that they tried to throw a protective ring around our care homes and failed, which would be forgivable. We are, of course, all fallible. But they claimed that they'd thrown a protective ring around our care homes, whereas what they actually did was fire infected bodies into the middle of buildings containing the single most vulnerable cohort of human beings in our country. It's incredible. And why? Because they were terrified of the optics of overflowing hospitals. They were terrified of seeing scenes in British hospitals comparable to the ones that we'd seen in Italy. So they did not say, how do we keep people safe? They said, how do we avoid those pictures? How do we avoid that PR disaster? How do we avoid overflowing hospitals? We've got to look better than the Italians. So how did they do it? By throwing 12,500 elderly, vulnerable people to the wolves. And they still claim they got all the big calls right. I'm not going to let that go. I'm sorry. Sometimes when I find something emerging in the programme as a refrain, I find myself saying it every couple of minutes. I think, all right, mate, that's enough now. Wind it in. I'm not going to stop saying it. I'm not going to stop saying it as long as I live. They got all the big calls right. And some people still swallow it. Some people still tuck in that forelock so damned hard. They got all the big calls right. They broke the law. Look, it can't be. It can't be that both those claims are true. They cannot have broken the law by endangering the lives of vulnerable residents while also throwing a protective ring around the homes containing those vulnerable residents. It cannot be that he got all the big calls right when 12,500 people died as a direct or indirect consequence of a policy now adjudged in court to be against the law, to be illegal. Oh, he's doing his best. No, he got all the big calls right. Got to move on from the parties. Can't change it now because Ukraine.